They tell you that silence is the absence of sound. But that's a lie. Silence is a presence. It sits on your chest. It fills a room. It lives in the space between one footstep and the next. And for the last 11 months, I've been trying to outrun T.M. My name is Liam, and I work as a footman at one of the royal residences. Not the big one, not Buckingham, not Windsor. A smaller estate. The kind tourists walk past without realizing anyone lives there. Just another gray stone building with too many chimneys and a gate that never opens. It's not glamorous. Most days, I polish silver that no one will use. I carry trays of tea to rooms where the curtains stay drawn. I wear a waistcoat that smells like starch and regret. And I keep my head down. But my real job, the one no one gave me, is counting. Every afternoon, when the courtyard empties and the last tour group shuffles toward the gift shop, I stand by the east window. The one behind the portrait of some duke who died before anyone cared. And I watch the paving stones. There are 143 of them. Granite, laid in 1887. The ones near the fountain are cracked. The ones near the gate are worn smooth by a century of boots. I count them, over and over, 1 to 143. Then back again, because if I count, I don't think about her. 3. Build tension. Her name was Aisha. She was 22. She had a laugh that sounded like a kettle boiling over, loud and unstoppable and impossible to ignore. She used to call me at 3 in the morning just to read me bad poetry she found on bus seats. She collected spoons from every city she visited. She had a scar above her left eyebrow from falling off a moped in Bangkok. And then, on a Tuesday, she walked to the corner shop to buy milk and never came back. That was 342 days ago. The police used words like missing person and voluntary departure and no evidence of foul play. But those are just things people say when they don't have answers. They don't fill the hole. They don't explain why her phone stopped pinging near the river. They don't tell you where she went. So I stopped asking. Instead, I started counting. The first time I did it, I was standing in the courtyard after a funeral. Not hers. There was no body, no service, no closure. Just a memorial bench in a park she never liked. I remember staring at the ground, watching rain pool in the cracks between stones. And I counted them, just to have something to hold on to. Now it's a ritual. 1, 2, 3. The stone near the drain has a chip that looks like a crescent moon. 4, 5, 6. The one by the fountain is slightly higher than the others. I tripped on it once, spilled tea down my sleeve, and the housekeeper called me useless. 7, 8, 9. I can do it with my eyes closed now. I know every dip and rise. Every shadow. Every place where moss has started to creep through. The other staff think I'm strange. I see them watching from the kitchen window. The chef, a man named Derek who only speaks in grunts, once asked if I was waiting for someone. I said yes. He didn't ask who. For climax last week, something happened. It was a Thursday, overcast, the kind of gray that makes London feel like a black and white photograph. The courtyard was empty except for a single tourist who had wandered past the barrier. An American, probably, judging by the baseball cap and the camera strapped around his neck like a weapon. He was standing on stone number 47, the one with the moss, and he was staring straight at the private entrance, the one no one is supposed to photograph. I should have called security. That's the rule. You see someone where they shouldn't be, you pick up the phone, and you let the men with radios handle it. That's the job. But I didn't, because he wasn't taking a picture. He was just standing there, staring, and his lips were moving. I couldn't hear him through the glass. The window is old, double-glazed, the kind that makes the outside world look like a television with the volume off. But I could see his mouth forming words. One word, over and over. Aisha. My blood went cold. Not the slow kind of cold, like stepping into a cold bath. The fast kind. The kind that stops your heart for half a second and then makes it pound so hard you can feel it in your teeth. I left the window. I ran through the pantry, past the silver polisher, past Derek who dropped a ladle, and swore. I burst out the side door into the courtyard, and the American was gone. Just gone. Stone 47 was empty. The moss was undisturbed. The only sound was a pigeon shuffling on the gutter. I stood there, breathing hard, and I did the only thing I could. I started counting. 1, 2, 3. But my hands were shaking. 4, 5, 6. I looked down at the stone beneath my feet. Number 81. The one with the hairline crack that looks like a vein. And that's when I saw it. A small piece of paper, folded into a square, wedged into the crack. The paper was damp, soft from the morning dew. I pulled it out with fingers that didn't feel like my own. Inside, written in blue ink, was a single sentence. She's not lost. She's hiding. And she's counting on you to find her. 5. Resolution: I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my room, a small closet of space with a single bed and a view of the bins, and I held that paper until the ink started to smudge. I read the words so many times they stopped sounding like English. She's not lost. She's hiding. From what? From who? Aisha was never a hider. She was the kind of person who ran toward trouble, not away from it. She once confronted a pickpocket on the tube and got her wallet back and a black eye, and she wore that bruise like a medal. So why would she hide? Unless she had to. Unless someone was looking for her. Unless I was looking in all the wrong places. The next morning, I called the detective. The one with the tired eyes and the too tight tie. I told him about the American. About the note. About Stone 47. He sighed. The kind of sigh that says I've been doing this job too long, and you're not the first desperate sibling I've spoken to this week. Liam, he said, we canvassed that area 6 months ago. There were no Americans. No witnesses. No paper. Are you sure you didn't imagine it? I hung up, because I know what I saw, and I know what I found, and I know that for the first time in 11 months, I felt something other than counting. I felt hope. 6. Ending line: the courtyard has 143 stones. And today, for the first time, I stopped counting long enough to realize maybe I was never supposed to count them at all. Maybe I was just supposed to look up. Part 2-1. Look, you don't realize how loud your own heartbeat is until you're the only person awake in a building that's 300 years old. It echoes. It bounces off the stone walls and the marble floors and the portraits of dead people who have nothing better to do than watch you fall apart. At 2:47 a.m., I stopped pretending to sleep. 2. Set up: the estate has a library. Not a real one. Not the kind with rolling ladders and fireplaces. Just a room with shelves of leather-bound books that no one has opened since the 1970s. It's where I go when the counting isn't enough. That night, I sat in the dark with a note on my knee. The ink had bled into a purple smear, but I still knew every word by heart. She's counting on you to find her. What did that mean? Counting on me. Not the police. Not the search teams. Me. A footman who polishes silver and counts paving stones like a man, try to put the world back together one crack at a time. I thought about the American. His cap. His camera. The way his lips formed her name. I'd never seen him before, and I'd never seen him since. But he knew something. He knew her. Unless he was her. No, that's crazy. Aisha wouldn't dress up like a tourist and stare at a private entrance. She'd just call. She'd text. She'd send me a voice note of her laughing at something stupid. She wouldn't play games. Unless she had to. 3. Build tension: the next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I left my post. Not dramatically. Not with a speech or a slam door. I just walked out the service gate at 9:15 a.m. when Derek was too busy burning toast to notice, and I took the tube to the last place her phone had pinged. Waterloo Bridge. It's not a nice place. It's loud. Cars scream past. The wind whips off the Thames and cuts through your coat like it's personally offended by your existence. But it's where she disappeared, so it's where I went. I stood on the pavement, hands in my pockets, and I looked down at the river. Gray, churning, full of things people had thrown away and never come back for. And then I started counting. Not footsteps, not stones. People. How many walked past me in 5 minutes? 42. How many looked at the water? 3. How many stopped? None. I don't know what I was looking for. A clue. A sign. A man in a baseball cap. But all I found was a city that didn't care, moving too fast to notice one more person standing still. I stayed for an hour, maybe two, long enough for the cold to seep into my bones and the hope to start leaking out again. And then my phone rang. For climax, it was a number I didn't recognize. Local. I almost didn't answer. I'd learned to ignore unknown callers after the third month, when the prank calls started. The ones where people pretended to be her, or pretended to know where she was, or just breathed into the phone and hung up. But something made me pick up. Liam. A woman's voice. Not Aisha. Older. Smoker's rasp. Who is this? My name is Marjorie. I live on a houseboat near the bridge. The blue one with the chipped paint. I looked down at the river. There was a houseboat. Blue. Chipped. Tied to a dock that looked like it might collapse if a pigeon landed too hard. I saw you standing there, she said. You've been standing there for weeks. Different days. Different times. Always staring at the water. I've never been here before, I said. This is my first time. A pause. Then, no, love. You've been coming here every Tuesday for 11 months. You stand in the same spot. You wear the same coat. And you count something under your breath. I thought you were mad. Then, I thought you were mourning. Now I think you're looking for someone. I felt the world tilt. That's not possible, I said. I work at an estate in Kensington. I've never missed a shift. I've never been here. Marjorie laughed. It was a dry sound, like leaves scraping pavement. Then, who's the man who looks exactly like you? Same height, same face, same gray coat. He even walks the same. Slouched, hands in pockets, like he's carrying something heavy. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles went white. You're lying. I'm too old to lie, she said. Come see me. I've got tea. And I got a photograph I took of him last month. I thought he was a ghost. Maybe he is. 5. Resolution, I went to the houseboat. It smelled like damp wood and old newspapers. Marjorie was smaller than her voice suggested. A tiny woman with wild gray hair and eyes that had seen too much and forgotten nothing. She poured me tea in a chipped mug and handed me a photograph. Printed on cheap paper. Blurry. Taken from a window. But clear enough. It was me. Same coat. Same slouch. Same way of standing with my weight on my left foot. But the face in the photograph was older. Thinner. The eyes were hollow in a way mine weren't. Not yet. That was taken 6 weeks ago, Marjorie said. He stood there for 4 hours. Didn't move. Didn't eat. Just counted. Counted what? People, I think. Or cars. Or cracks in the pavement. I don't know. But he was counting something. I stared at the photograph. And my own face, looking back at me from a time I didn't remember living. I don't have a twin, I whispered. Marjorie shrugged. Everyone has something they don't know about. I left the houseboat with the photograph in my pocket, and more questions than I'd arrived with. The river looked the same. The city looked the same. But something had shifted. Because if there was another me out there, someone who looked like me, walked like me, counted like me, then maybe he knew something I didn't. Maybe he knew where she was. 6. Ending line that night, I stood in the courtyard and counted the stones one last time. 143. Then, I looked up at the window where I always stand. And for a second, just a second, I saw someone standing there, watching me, counting me. Then they were gone. And I smiled, because for the first time in 11 months, I wasn't alone in my own silence. Part 3-1. Hook. The worst part about losing someone isn't the not knowing. It's the knowing that somewhere, in some version of the world, you already found them. And you're the only one who didn't get to live that life. 2. Set up 3 days after the photograph. I stopped going to work. I didn't quit. I just didn't show up. Dara called twice. The housekeeper left a voicemail that was mostly sighing. I ignored all of it. Instead, I went back to Waterloo Bridge every morning. I stood in the spot from the photograph. I wore the same coat. And I waited. For what? I didn't know. For him. For the other me. For a sign that I wasn't losing my mind. Marjorie brought me tea sometimes. She didn't ask questions. She just handed me a mug and sat on a crate and watched the river with me. We were an odd pair, an old woman and a man who might be a ghost of himself. On the 4th day, he showed up. 3. Build tension. I saw him before he saw me. He walked with the same slouch, the same heavy step. But his coat was older than mine, more worn. And his face, God, his face. It was my face, but weathered. like he'd been standing in the rain for years without moving. He stopped about 10 feet away from me, looked at the river, didn't look at me. I clear my throat. You're me. He didn't flinch. I know. Ow! He turned. Same eyes. Same scar on his chin from falling off a bike at 12. But his eyes were older. Tired. Like they'd seen too many endings. Because I've been following you for 3 months, he said. You don't notice. You're too busy counting. What? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a photograph. Different from Marjorie's. This one was old. Creased. Faded like it had been folded and unfolded 1,000 times. It was Aisha, but not the Aisha I remembered. In this photo, she was older. Her hair was longer. She had a child on her hip, a little girl with wild curls and a gap-toothed smile. Who is that? I whispered. Your niece, he said. Her name is Mina. She's 4 years old, and she's never met you because in my world, in my timeline, you died looking for Aisha. You never stopped counting. And one day you walked into traffic on this bridge and you didn't walk out. 4. Climax the world went quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. The kind where your brain stops working because it can't process what it just heard. That's not possible, I said. Time doesn't work like that. He laughed. It was my laugh. The one Aisha always said sounded like a lawnmower starting up. Time doesn't work at all, he said. It's just something we made up so we don't have to face how meaningless everything is. But some things, some people, they break the rules. Aisha broke them. You broke them. I broke them. He stepped closer. I could smell him. Same soap. Same desperation. In my timeline, he said, Aisha didn't go missing. She ran because she found out something about our father. Something he did. Something that would put him in prison for the rest of his life. She ran to protect you. To protect Mina. But you couldn't let her go. You searched, and you searched, and you searched until you didn't exist anymore. Our father is dead, I said. He died when I was 12. Heart attack. The other me shook his head. No, he faked it. He's been living in France under a different name. And Aisha found him. She confronted him. And he threatened to hurt you if she told anyone. I felt my knees buckle. I grabbed the railing. She's not missing, I said slowly. She's hiding. She's in Edinburgh, he said. She works in a bookshop. She uses a different name. She calls Mina a different last name. She's been waiting for you to stop counting and start looking. But I have been looking. No, he said gently. You've been counting. There's a difference. Counting is waiting. Looking is moving. 5. Resolution, I didn't go back to the estate. I didn't go back to the courtyard, or the stones, or the window, where I'd spent 11 months watching the world pass by. I took a train to Edinburgh. It was a gray city, colder than London, the kind of cold that settles in your bones and reminds you that you're alive. I found the bookshop, a small place wedged between a bakery and a charity shop with a sign that said The Reading Room in gold letters. The bell above the door chimed when I walked in, and there she was, Aisha, my Aisha, but different, older, calmer. She had lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She was holding a stack of books, and when she looked up, she dropped them. They hit the floor with a sound like thunder. Liam, she whispered. I didn't say anything. I just walked to her, and for the first time in 11 months, I didn't count anything. Not footsteps, not books, not heartbeats. I just held her. She was shaking, crying, saying my name over and over like a prayer. And behind the counter, a little girl with wild curls and a gap-toothed smile peeked out and said, Mummy, who's that? Aisha looked at me, then at Mina, then back at me. That's your uncle, she said. He finally stopped counting.